Well, back now to our story on the LA Unified School District going after Arizona's new immigration law. According to the school board, they just want to teach students about the law, and they want, they want to put it in perspective historically, they say. And to do that, they'll compare it to slavery, to the Jim Crow laws, and to the Japanese internment camps. And now we learned that at least 3 of the district's teachers are taking the students on overnight field trips to Arizona so they can go protest a law the teachers say is racist. Not just the teachers, the board itself. Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, Mike Gallagher, a syndicated radio talk show host and Fox News contributor, and Mark Levine, a radio talk show host and constitutional attorney. Mike, we knew that the school board had done this last week, and now we learn, taking their orders from the top, apparently, the teachers go off, take the kids on the overnight field trip to go into Arizona and protest what they call a racist law.
I'm going to attempt to be objective as we start this conversation today, Megyn. Here's the way I'll present this to my buddy on the left here, Mark. He has to acknowledge there's a debate about this law. Most of us think the law makes sense in Arizona. Some do not. Mark thinks it's a bad idea. At the very least, we know there's a debate. So for teachers to engage in bringing students to a protest because the teachers have decided that the law is wrong is irresponsible. It's unprofessional. Those teachers ought to be fired. Again, I'm acknowledging there's a debate and that Mark thinks that this law is subverting the Constitution and ripping the constitutional rights away from illegals. Forget that for a moment. At least we know there's an argument, there's a debate. There's no way these teachers should be allowed to get away with this. Every last one of them that's engaging in this kind of behavior ought to be fired.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mike, when did the teachers and the students give up their free speech rights? To the extent that this was voluntary, and I do not support it if it was a requirement. I think that's wrong.
It wasn't required.
To the extent that teachers and students, with their parents' permission, decided voluntarily to exercise their free speech rights and off-school property, off-school time, go and protest the law, that's their right. They're American citizens, Mike. They didn't give up their First Amendment rights.
It's their right, but let me ask you this. Mark, I want to start with you on this. At what point does the teacher's behavior rise to the level of unacceptable? Because, the one teacher who organized it, he came right out and said it's a racist and outrageous law. Now, his school board feels the same, so he's probably not going to be in trouble with them. But he went along with 2 other teachers, including a guy named Ron Gochez, who teaches social studies, who we saw this from in 2007. The guy kept his job. Look at this guy, Mr. Gochez.
Where we now stand is stolen, occupied Mexico. Why is it that these people, these frail, racist white people, want to keep us out of this country? It's not because simply the color of our skin. It's not simply because they just want to exploit us. Let me tell you why. Because on this planet right now, of 6 billion people, at the forefront of the revolutionary movement is the raza. When you go to Venezuela.
That's one of the teachers who went on this field trip with the students. He's teaching those kids social studies and history right now.
Wow.
Megyn, I'm happy to tell you that teacher's conduct goes way too far. What? I listened to the entire clip. It's clear he's a wacko, racist, communist, revolutionary. I don't want him in the schools. I'm okay with firing that particular teacher.
Oh,
I am.
Mark, you just said free speech allows these teachers to exercise their expression. What happened to the free speech protection argument, Mark?
There's a difference, Mike, and I hope you'll agree with me on this difference. It's one thing to go and protest an Arizona law that you and I agree is up for dispute. I don't like the law, you do. Attending a protest, I have no problem with that. That's within the range, I think, of American speech and freedom.
Mark.
If you have a teacher that preaches racism or revolutionary behavior, this teacher was preaching violence. It sounded like against the American system. I don't care whether on the left or the right. I don't want those people teaching children. And I hope you agree with the same on the right.
Let me ask you, Mike. Okay, so it's one thing. So Mark concedes teaching racism is wrong. That should get you booted. But what about teaching the existence of racism where it doesn't exist, which is what a lot of people think that they're doing right now in L.A. County, in a school district that they can't even graduate half their class. Trace said their graduation rate is 75%. Our statistics say it's more like 50% of the kids that graduate.
Yeah, instead of worrying about teaching these kids fundamentals of learning, they're worried about taking them to protest marches against Arizona. See, here's the problem with the liberal argument about the First Amendment and free speech. You see, it's outrageous to pretend that these teachers aren't trying to indoctrinate these kids into thinking that the lawful behavior of Arizona is somehow the wrong thing and worthy of a protest. Mark knows that. Mark wants future libs who are going to be churned out by the Los Angeles School District so that he can have more of the same. And he's in the minority. These teachers are the minority, and their actions are irresponsible and reckless.
Does it bother you, Mark, as a lawyer, does it bother you that, you know, as Mike pointed out, there are two sides on this issue, and you know that. You're a smart guy. You know that. Does it bother you that this school district, this is the second largest school district in the country, that they are teaching as fact that the Arizona law is racist, un-American, and equivalent to slavery?
Well, at least, Megyn, that's an opinion. You know, what's worse is the Texas school teachers that are teaching as fact that evolution didn't happen and trying to impose their religious views, which clearly violates the First Amendment. No, I'm not, Megyn. My point is that teachers are always indoctrinating kids from the left and the right. And at the end of the day, I hope the kids will be able to make up their own minds.
How?
This is
How
a law
are they going to make up their
that,
own
let's
minds
face it,
if nobody is giving them the opposite story, the other side of the story?
And you, Megyn, and I can agree that the Texas teachers are also wrong to try to indoctrinate the kids into believing into their Christian religion.
You're going over to a place you feel safe. You're not staying in my place.
That's right. He doesn't
no,
want to
the difference, Megyn, is look. This is a law. This is a law that 71% of Americans believe will harm legal American citizens. 80% of Latinos oppose this law.
This is a law with that 71. Hey, stop it with the 71% poll. You know most polls say that Americans are in favor of this law. You know most
That's different, Mike.
In favor of the law.
But Americans are in favor of the law, but they know legal citizens will be harassed. That's important.
This is a law.
That's important. They know legal citizens will be harassed.
And
that's like Jim Crow.
You're both.
That is like Jim Crow.
Until you went there, you're both right on that. I mean, the law does show that people do believe that people who are here in this country lawfully will be harassed as a result. But they still like the law because apparently that's the point to which illegal immigration has gotten in this country, that people have just had it.
It's all Mark's got.
All right, guys.
And Megyn, real quick, that's what makes it like Jim Crow. Because like Jim Crow, a majority of Americans supported Jim Crow. A majority of Americans support the Arizona law. And everybody knows that Jim Crow harmed black people, and Americans believe this law will harm Latinos. What this shows is there are laws supported by a majority of Americans that harm minorities.
We really need to do a post game with you two on FoxNews.com/AmericaLive.
Just to generate.
Love having you on, you guys. Always spicy, and I appreciate you both being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Megyn.
Thanks, guys.
We're still taking your email.